Hey everybody, thanks for the comments on the last vid. So last week we dealt with the propulsion systems on the different catamarans and what I thought was the best option, especially for us. I mean, I'm a fisherman, so I would be wanting a bit of grunt in the propulsion and something which would be reliable and that could take a bit of punishment. So yeah, so having selected the straight shaft inline gearboxes, let's move on to the other below waterline features like your Keels and Daggerboards. So what I'm going to have to say now is probably going to go against all the marketing and anything that's going on currently today. Most of the clients who are buying catamarans now are first-time owners and have got limited experience sailing cats. They're normally coming with monos, or they're older couples who have some money. And having the money doesn't necessarily mean you should be buying the most up-to-date and technically advanced catamarans and features on your catamaran, because it's not going to necessarily allow you to sail trouble-free and make it a pleasure to sail. I think most of the people that are buying are couples, so they're short-handed generally. You don't often have families buying or people who are going to be sailing with 4-6 people on board. So that's something you need to take into account when you're shorthand sailing. And most of these couples will learn about these catamarans when they do their sea trials and as they go along. So it's also super difficult for them to then make decisions on these vessels, before you've actually even really sailed them. And there seems to be an absolute focus on speed these days. Everybody's looking at these foiling boats and the speeds they're getting and full carbon and the lightness and going for lightweight carbon catamarans. But none of them have actually spent time on these catamarans or spent a night at sea on these catamarans in rough conditions to actually experience what it's like on these carbon boats. It's going to be pretty freaking lumpy tonight. Wind's supposed to go 35, 40 and then die off a bit tomorrow and then come back at us again going around Cape Point. It's supposed to get up to 35, 40 as well. So it's going to be an interesting, eventful trip. 20.4 knots on the jib alone. The aftermath of the night of sailing. You hear the noise and the difference, between a urethane boat or epoxy boat and these carbon boats. There's a major difference to the noise level in these boats, and you'll only understand that when you've actually spent a night sleeping up forward or in the midships cabins on these boats. And let me tell you, if you're doing 12 knots in one of these catamarans and you're sleeping in the midships or forward cabins, you're definitely going to be up and giving your skipper hell and trying to get him to slow the boat down, because it's really noisy. It's very difficult to sleep. So it's all these things that have to be factored in when you're deciding on what you're going to settle for. And everybody's going, Daggerboards are so fast and they make such a big difference. Well, I've got some examples of keel boats doing incredible speeds. And who said boats with keels can't go fast? This is Lyra Noah doing 18 knots average and then topping out at 28 knots on a run. It still beats the 5 to 6 which we went to Canada lately, where our top out speed was in 40 knots of northeast was 20 knots. So yeah, if you prepare to push a boat in the right conditions, you can get a hell of a lot of speed out, regardless of whether it's a Daggerboard or a keel. And I don't see very much of a difference, or I haven't experienced much of a difference between these the two different keel choices that you can make. I think there's a lot more involved in the Daggerboards and a lot more knowledge you need to use, and there's probably the biggest advantages of the Daggerboards is actually going downwind, when you can retract the Daggerboards a bit and reduce a bit of the friction. But then you run the danger of exposing your prop shafts and your rudders to anything if you're going to hit something, and that's where the keel comes in, and the keel offers that kind of protection. It's stronger, and it also allows you the opportunity to take the boat and put it on a sandbank somewhere and do some maintenance. If you have a problem with a rudder or with something, or a seal or something, it's possible to do that, because the foot keels are designed to actually carry the weight of the boat. You can actually beach these catamarans on a full tide and let the tide go out, and they'll be dry, and you could do some work on them. It's not something you would be doing obviously often, but it's the option is there. As far as going upwind with the keels, Oh, this is crazy, man. This forecast, man, this is getting freaking out of hand now. Shit. 27, 28, I've got 31 apparent, doing over 11 knots now. I can't spill any more. Can't spill any more wind on the main because she's touching the shrouds already. So man, that's as little as I can slow it down. Freaking crazy. Thank goodness the sea's not too bad. Man, gotta hang on and hopefully this settles down. It's starting to get scary now. It's freaking nuts, this man. Really not cool. Not enjoying this at all. We're mid-channel now, and it's been like this the whole way between 24 and 26. Taking a bit of weather, and up to 32 knots, 33 knots apparent. Man, I'm trying to get in behind Santa Lucia, the island. This is freaking nuts, man. Really nervous sailing in this stuff. If anything goes wrong here, I'm in deep trouble. So you can see we've come in behind Santa Lucia. The wind's dropped a bit. Yeah, I think I'm gonna start the motors, get this jib down, and I'm gonna put another reef into the main. This is just too overpowered and very uncomfortable. In really nice conditions behind islands where you had good wind and not too much wave action, we could get up to 30 degrees hand sailing her. I could point 30 degrees into the breeze, and she would sail, and easily from 35-40 degrees. So I don't see a huge difference between the Daggerboards and the Keels when it comes to pointing into the wind, or beating, as you would say. And definitely if you're going to be beating at over 10 knots, it doesn't matter whether you're Daggerboards or Keels, you're not going to want to go any faster, because your crew are not going to like you too much. Yeah, and as far as the differences, when you look at the polars of these vessels, looking at speed-wise, there's only about a half a knot difference between the Keels and the Daggerboards. The Daggerboards slightly faster. Never sailed in a regatta, but we're going to do it today. So it's going to be interesting. We're going to line up on the start line at 12, do a little parade, and then our start time is 1:20. So it's going to be fun. Woohoo! Go Lyra! Steal that wind! So to illustrate the point, in our travels we entered the Bacchus Regatta at Bacchus del Toro, and took part in the regatta with 60 other vessels, some of them Daggerboard Catamarans. We were allocated a slot with another Daggerboard boat, last in the fleet of cruisers, and 22 minutes behind. Now we'd started second last on handicap, tied with these guys, Avalon. At this stage I didn't realize that this was actually a Daggerboard vessel, and they absolutely smoked us on the first leg with a spinnaker. Probably took 400 meters out of us down to the first buoy. And the wind was super light on the first leg, so we struggled, but changed and increased to 15 to 18 knots on the second, which played straight into our hands. I wish we'd videoed the chaos on the second mark. Man, we were like freaking 5 meters from them. It was crazy. The wind switched on the top there, and everybody was expecting it was still east, and it came out of the northwest. But anyway, we got out of it well. We did a couple of overtakes, and we're smoking. Yes, hey boys, showing them how to do it. And everybody else has dumped their freaking Zodiacs and left them on the jetty for weight, and we're carrying 2 tons of fuel, 1,000 liters of water, and next to the Catamarans are giving the oaks carrots. Yeah, it's absolutely no secret that I absolutely love these balanced Catamarans, and regardless of your keel setup, these boats are fast, super fast. Woohoo! Break out the beer! 42 night! There's no way. Definitely nothing better for a South African than to beat the Australian counterparts. The guys were peeved, but it was a fair race and we got them in the end. Yeah, it all goes to show these keel versions of the balanced catamarans go just as well as the Daggerboard versions. So the polos on the boats and the designers have a bias towards the Daggerboards, but call me old school. They say it'll point a little bit further up into the breeze, but I haven't really noticed that because your keels have actually got more surface area underneath the vessel. Daggerboards in the retracted position draw about 1 meter, which is the same depth as your rudders. Yeah, the keel models run at around about 1.5, 1.6 meters on the 60 footers. It's a bit less for the 52s. And yeah, if you retract your Daggerboards, you're now leaving your rudders exposed. So you've always got to take that into consideration. So any of these boats basically going to be running it with at least 1 meter draft. So the difference is going to be probably 500 mils. I'm not saying that I'm against the Daggerboards. The Daggerboards are sexy. This is what everybody's going for. But they come with a price of you lose storage in the midships compartments in the boats, and you've got the Daggerboard sticking out above the deck, and then also your lines running back, your control lines on your Daggerboards to your jammers. So that stuff also sort of tends to get in the way a little bit. It's way nicer to have an absolutely clear deck when you're running your sheet lines back for your Genoas and your code zeros and your kites. So yeah, there's pros and cons for both sides of the scale. But if you're looking at a cruising boat where you're short-handed and you don't want to have to consider too much stuff, there's absolutely nothing wrong with keels. They work 100%, and I from personal experience, I can say I actually preferred it. I preferred the clear deck without having to worry about where your Daggerboards are. Are they up? Are they down? Maybe forgetting them, maybe knocking them. And also there's a little bit of chatter. The Daggerboards do have a bit of movement, and they can produce a bit of noise, not so much when beating because they have pressure on them, but downsea, when you're surging forward and back, you can get a bit of knocking and chatter on the Daggerboards. So in summary, you can call me old school because I prefer the rear cabin setup with the engines underneath the bunks. It means you would have to have a setup of your main bunk in your owner's side in the rear, and would have to have your bathrooms midships or up front. But yeah, this offers you the best sleeping arrangement as far as getting a good night's sleep and ease of maintenance. If you then choose the keeled version, it also frees up space on the port side if you've got a twin cabin arrangement where you can actually slot in 2 bathrooms back to back, so that both crew quarters have heads and shower semi-ensuite. Going forward, these are your bays for all your services, your day tanks and your blackwater tanks. These were in the place where the Daggerboard channel would come, but this is the old design 601. A lot has changed and there have been a lot of modifications since. Yeah, the designs of the new 580, of which there are 2 in production now, has got a totally different setup, and it's going to be interesting to see how those are laid out because they have the same volumetrics as the hull of the 601. It's just a shortened version, and yeah, the whole design has changed. So yeah, there's a lot to look forward to and to see how that all works out. Yeah, one thing's for sure is that none of these catamarans are the same. I've yet to see the same models come out with the same layout. Every owner has his own idea on how he wants these vessels laid out. I'm just giving you my view on how I would keep it simple and functional and make it easier for shorthand sailing. So next week we're going to delve into the sail setup and how I would prefer to have the sail setup done on a boat to sail it with ease. I really love the 601 setup on Lyra Noah. It was super easy to sail, probably easier than any of the other models because everything came back to the helm, and that's what I would prefer. So next week I'll lay out how we could possibly have that done on the 526s to make it easier for single hand sailing, and yeah, so you can have more fun and more enjoyment and sail trouble free. So make sure you subscribe and we'll catch you next week. Thanks for watching. Ciao for now.